Marty, do you like big choppers? Do you like forging? Howdy and welcome back to the workshop. In today's episode, we're going to be turning a disaster into something very cool. What I'm holding right here is a leaf spring from my truck, and you may be thinking, Will, that leaf spring should be supporting the bed of your truck and not in your hand, and you would be correct in that statement. Unfortunately, I abuse my truck very hard. And so I have not one, but two cracked leaf springs. And tomorrow I'm getting my suspension replaced. So I figured it would be pretty fun to take this piece of leaf spring steel and turn it into a big, giant camp chopper. So let me show you exactly where this came from, and then we'll fire up the forge and start turning it into something useful. I'll show you where it cracked down here. It's on the back end of both springs. It was very unfortunate. I found it when I was replacing my shocks, because for a while there, this thing was riding like a 1970s Cadillac. It was just like a boat. But I'm excited to get back into rallying shape. But in order to pay for that, we need to make a sick knife so that one of you can take care of it for me. So thanks. All right, so this chunk is about 15 inches long, 2.5 inches wide, about 350 thou thick, so a little bit less than 3/8. Should be plenty of steel for a big chopper. I am going to not include the hole in the end. We'll hot cut that off. But we're gonna toss this guy in the forge, let it get nice and hot, and then I'll start off by forging out kind of my blade shape, forge in my tip, and then we'll move on to doing the rest of the handle and all that stuff. Okay, this stuff does not like to move. It's probably 5160 or a very close alloy to that, which is a great chopper material, but it's what we call red hard, which is where it doesn't want to move when it's red hot. So I'm going to forge down a tang for one thing underneath the power hammer, just something that I can grab onto with tongs, because holding tongs like this kind of sucks. Forged in the tip, went really well, one heat under the hammer. Now I'm gonna cut off, because the end of that bar kind of folded over, it formed what we call fish lips, which is where it cold shuts at the end. We're just gonna hot cut that off on the anvil by hand. Okay, so we've got a really good start. The blade is gonna get a lot wider. I haven't forged in my bevels yet, so we'll probably get another inch or more widthwise out of it. We've got the start of the handle, isolating it out. I'm gonna flip it around and forge out my tang a little better, and then keep on working on the handle. Bummer. It's just moving my thing down. Okay, so we have a problem, and that is that this post vise has smooth jaws. And this is a smooth piece of steel, which means that when I'm trying to whack on it, this is just moving around rather than doing what I want it to do, which is help give me an indent, which is the transition from the guard into the blade. We need that. So I'm just gonna put a couple dots of weld bead on this thing so that it has a mechanical barrier from sliding down. Move some of these titanium bench scrapers out of the way. Look how nice that looks. Crazy nice. I'm gonna keep it a little Western and just shut my eyes. Bam! I'm gonna do one on this side. Look at that. It's not going anywhere. Plus, I damaged my vision permanently. Look at that. now I have a good idea of how long my handle's gonna be. Well, I know that I can get it to where I want it to be, so I'm gonna cut off that junk that's on the end right now, so I can kind of sculpt, shape the butt a little bit. This is gonna have a tapered tang, so at the top of the handle, it's gonna be at the full thickness of the blade, and at the bottom of the handle, it's gonna be like an 1/8 inch thick. So the taper and the tang will look really nice, lighten up the handle a little bit, keep all that weight blade forward, and it means that you have to use less material. Obviously, I had plenty of material, but I like tapered tangs. So I'm gonna hand hot cut off that stuff. I just don't have the angle for it. I wonder if I held the blade a little bit like that. No. Unsurprisingly, that didn't work. Second plan is to take this, we'll drop it in, I'll slide this under the guard, and then clamp it down, and then forge down on this so that the guard will have somewhere to go. I think that's a better idea. We'll see how it goes. All right, we're almost done with the forging now. Got the guard looking good. Now, because of the way that I like to do my handles with the kind of like two different lines that kind of match, it's a little bit hard to forge. I just got to play around with it, but we're really close to having the handle done. We're gonna draw that taper down a little bit more, and then we'll switch on, forge out the bevels, a little bit of final shaping and straightening, and we'll be done. All right, bevel time. It's all right, it only applies to white guys. All right, we're gonna fire up the kiln so that we're ready to quench this thing when it's done forging. I'm gonna austinize it at 1525, so that's the temperature that it's gonna come up to, and then wait for a couple of minutes. That'll give it a little bit of a tougher heat treat than a lower austenizing temperature. So that should be at temperature by the time we're done forging. All right, I'm gonna go into the grinding room and grind back this edge just a little bit and then get it to the final thickness through forging. That'll give us a really nice texture on the blade and a really consistent edge thickness. All right, so we've gotten 4 normalizing cycles in so far. We're gonna do one more low heat normalizing cycle. Then it's gonna go into the kiln, come up to 1525. It'll sit there for about 15 minutes till the whole blade is at the same temperature. Then I'm gonna quench it, but I'm not gonna quench the handle because I still need to drill holes in it. And it's late and I don't wanna let it cool down and drill holes and then let it heat back up. So we're doing it the lazy way. Plus the tang doesn't need to be hardened. It doesn't get that much stress. This thing is gonna be super tough. All right, we're at temperature, time for the quench. All right, it's cooled down now. It's gonna go into the tempering oven at 425 degrees overnight. It's gonna do that cycle twice, and we'll start working on it in the morning. Nice. It's the next day now, time to pull this guy out of the tempering oven. It's nice and cool and should be thoroughly tempered. Now we're gonna head into the grinding room, get it profiled, and we'll talk about what we're gonna do once that's done. All right, so I thought I had the room to grind out that tang being kicked over, but I just don't have enough. So what I'm gonna do is heat up the tang with the oxypropane torch in kind of this area right here. Just kind of kick it over a little bit. Should be a pretty fast little operation. All right, got it nice and straight. Now we let it cool down a little bit more, go back in the grinding room and get our tang completely flat. An interesting thing with brute to forge knives is you don't actually want to pull that taper all the way up to past where the handle scales are going to meet. You want to pull that taper to just behind where the handle scales are so that it's kind of hidden and it'll look really good that way. All right, now it's time to get our pins laid out for the handle. So we've got our tang flattened down on both sides. There's a little shmoo, but you can like barely feel it, but I'd have to take off a lot of material. When I do layout like this, I just like to draw kind of the general area. This is a piece of chikati, which is a South African hardwood. I brought this back with me from South Africa a couple years ago, and I've just been waiting for the right project to use it on, and I think this is it. It's super dense, really oily, should be a really good handle material for a big chopper. So we're gonna set up the bandsaw, get a couple of scales ripped out, and then maybe that'll be cool. We'll see. This wood is super pretty. Just marking it so I can keep track of where everything's supposed to be. Fortunately, the handle on that thing tapers so much that I was able to taper it out, and we should end up with a nice, pretty dang flat set of scales. Should be plenty thick. Yeah, we'll drill through and then get to shaping. Go ahead and cut away on the bandsaw the stuff that we don't need to get rid of the bulk of the material. I like to do that one scale at a time. I just find that it's a little bit faster that way. And then we'll throw on the other scale, get it put together, and grind it flush with the tang. All right, let's go into the grinding room, get this thing flushed up to the tang, and then we'll move on after we get it roughed in and grind our bevels. All right, got our handle scales profiled. Now we're gonna go ahead and do the bevels on the blade. This should go quickly, but so far everything here has been fighting me. So we'll see. What I'll do now is tap the two handles together and then grind the tops of the scales flush. And that way they'll be at kind of the same angle, which is good. All right, it is looking very nice. Next steps, we're getting ready to glue up the handle, but before we do that, we need to make sure that the blade finish up here is really good. So we're gonna go back to the wire wheel, get it cleaned off again, and then also we need to buff the tops of the handle scales because we won't be able to do that later. And then we'll be ready to clean everything off, degrease it, and get ready for some glue. I'm gonna put a little Wicked Wax on the blade, darken it up a little bit. Now we need to do the opposite of that to the underside of the handle. We're gonna degrease it so that the epoxy will have a good bond. All right, we're pretty much done. I'm gonna give it one wipe down with some oil, and then we'll get to testing. This was a surprisingly good time. Just one day ago, this thing was a busted leaf spring, and now it is a sick chopper with a beautiful South African hardwood handle. And there's only one thing to do now, and that's figure out if it works. Well, this thing came out very, very good. The shape of the handle is very nice. That little bird's beak on the back kind of catches your finger. So for that like aggressive, big chopping swings, it just holds your hand really well. And then this big kind of finger guard choil feels really comfortable and you're choked up for more precise kind of chopping stuff. But overall, this thing is just super cool. It's a 12-inch blade. It's just under 19 inches overall, about 5/16 at the spine. It's a beast. I do think that I am going to put this thing up for sale. I'm gonna make a couple of little tweaks to it, touch up a couple of areas, stuff like that, so that it's ready, and then we'll get a sheath made for it as well. I keep a knife this sized in my truck all the time. I use it for clearing brush on the trails. I've killed rattlesnakes with it. I've done all sorts of stuff, chopping firewood. They're just handy. And they're wicked cool because nobody has anything like this, and they're just a lot of fun. So apart from this thing going up on the site after I get it cleaned up, we also have some titanium spatulas. Now, not only are these super cool because it's forged titanium, which is not terribly easy to do, but it's like the perfect spatula material. They're totally corrosion resistant, so there's nothing that you can do to harm it, really. I mean, you could like put it in your garbage disposal or to heat it up to 2,000 degrees, but apart from that, it's fantastic. And even if you did heat it up to 2000 degrees at the blade, the handle stays room temperature because the heat transfer properties of titanium are very poor, which means that while the blade gets hot, the handle stays nice and cool. So we got these guys in 2 different variants. We're gonna have this. We've got some megaliths up on the website. And we just really appreciate the support. We're having a great time. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We're gonna be doing a big kitchen knife drop coming up, which a lot of people have been asking for. And so we're just stoked. And we appreciate the opportunity to get to pursue things that we're passionate about. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like this style of video, building something and then testing it out, go ahead, drop a comment down below. Make sure you like, make sure to subscribe. And thank you so much to our patrons for patronizing us. I will see you guys on the next one. Goodbye.